Hi, my name is Scott Simmons. I'm the pastor at Faith United Church of Christ, and I'm here with Polly, who has been with our community for like 2.5 years. She's a member of the church. She often sits to the front right. I think you still sit there if you're looking at the front with her adult son, Brad. And Polly, I'm so glad that you're here.
Thank you.
And you are a 9 on the Enneagram, a peacemaker. Can you tell me a little bit about you and what it means for you to be a 9?
Well, before I knew I was a 9 peacemaker, I'm a Libra, and Libra is the balance. They see both sides of everything and try to find that balance. And if they can't make both sides happy, they usually just don't pick a side at all. And that's not always the best answer, but they try to find something good from both sides to make the third choice, to find that balance in the middle, and make everybody happy. And that doesn't always work, but that's what we try to do. And if we can't do that, we just back away and figure it out yourselves.
Mm-hmm. So that's really interesting because in reading about 9s, one of the strengths of a 9 is their ability to see the value of multiple points of view.
Okay.
It's one of the reasons that a 9 can be such a great peacemaker is that they don't become entrenched in a single viewpoint, like say maybe an 8 or a 1 or maybe even a 3 like me would do. But at the same time, 9s, the thing that you all are trying to avoid is conflict.
Yes.
Right, more so than most of us, and so that you would back away if you can't find a solution that is good for everybody. That's very 9 of you. Can you think of a time maybe when you were in that situation where you decided to back away, or maybe you found kind of common ground? Or
Probably the easiest thing to remember is at my work. I'm a cashier in a cafe in a big business building, and we have different coolers that hold soda and tea and sandwiches, things like that. And every once in a while, one of those coolers will just die, so we have to get a new one. And the new cooler is not always the same size or shape or capacity that the old one was. So instead of holding, 7 rows of product, now we have one that only holds 5. And instead of holding 300 pieces of something, it holds 200. So we have to figure out a way to make what was into now what is. And I have the vision, or somebody else says, let's do this. And I'm like, well, that's not going to fit. So let's do this. And they go, well, I want this. Well, that's not going to work. We're going to do this. I usually win because I've been there longer and seniority has its merit sometimes. But no, if there's a conflict, and if I say, well, I'd like to do, plan A, and they're going, well, I think plan B is going to work. Okay, let's go with plan B. And then if that doesn't work the way you think it's going to, we'll go back to plan A or create a whole new plan. Mm-hmm. Plan C.
Do you ever go along with plan B, even though you think it's the wrong move?
I will, and up to a point, but if I see that one of the elements of this plan just isn't working, mm-hmm. then I will slowly, but sometimes stealthily, change it to what does work. And not just because I said so, but because this is what works. Okay. Does that make sense? I hope.
Yeah, it does. It does.
Okay.
I'm going to introduce a term that we haven't talked about yet that I recall
Okay.
from my reading. And I'm not saying that this was you in that moment, but all of us are on a continuum of healthy and unhealthy. So like an unhealthy 9, because they want to avoid conflict, but they're also on the gut triad, the 8s, 9s, and 1s, people that have deep instincts about what's right and wrong. So like an 8 or a 1 who are pretty overt about their view of right and wrong, 9s tend to kind of know somewhere deep anyways, but they'll avoid the conflict. And then when they're unhealthy, they might engage in some passive aggressive behavior. Am I hitting your thing? Not to say other types don't do that too. We all do, but right, that is a particular way that kind of it might manifest. So you're like, oh, we can do that. And then you're like changing the shelves when nobody's looking.
Yeah, I do. Or I will just eliminate a product that maybe isn't selling as often.
Uh-huh.
And then when people start asking, oh, why don't you carry, ABC cola? I'm like, well, we just don't have room for it. We can't get it from the supplier. I try to make it truthful. Mostly it's we just don't have room for it in the stock room or in the cooler.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
only 3 people ever bought it anyway, so we're not going to carry it. But
Yeah. I was thinking when I asked the question of like, do you ever go along with something even though you don't agree with it? I was thinking about this, I guess my understanding of peace, that sometimes we can create peace on the surface. But if we don't go with what we think is truthful, a lot of times we won't have peace within. And so we're kind of like, like I did that, but I don't, like we're getting along, but I really have a grudge. And so like the challenge I think that the nines kind of reveal to all of us is that avoiding conflict rarely solves the conflict, it just delays it.
right, that's true.
Yeah.
But what happens like for me is I will be, level for a long time, but then something will just push me over the edge and I throw my what I call the hissy fit and I have to just put it out there. And it's usually something that let's say we with another person, we've had a discussion, we've talked about it back and forth, and this person wants it this way. And I'm not talking about work, I'm just talking in general here.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, no, this is the way. And we butt heads over it. And I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm done. Do it your way and we'll see what happens. Well, if your way works, yay, yay you, I'm happy for you. But if it doesn't, then it's like, okay, now it's time for you to come back off and listen to my plan or my side or my solution, whatever we're talking about, and give that a shot.
Mm-hmm.
And if it works better than what yours was, great. If it doesn't, well, then let's get together again and let's try to find something that's going to work totally for both of us or for the situation or the element, whatever we're trying to achieve here.
As you were talking there, I think something that registered for me is that whether it was your way or the other way or finding a new way, the focus of what you said was about finding a solution that works. Whereas some people and some types and I certainly myself, it can move from whatever the issue is into something that's become personal, right? And so now it's a fight about you versus me versus, hey, there's just this thing. And it just dawned on me that like, okay, so that's the way Polly was talking about it leads to a solution. That's maybe one way that people like her function as a peacemaker. Like, just, hey, your way, my way, whatever works. Let's just keep focused on the task at hand and not get bogged down into like a worse conflict.
And sometimes you come on board to a project. I'll use this as a wild example. I've helped maybe 3 times at the food pantry, but let's say I come on board. Well, I have new eyes. Matt and his team have been doing the same thing. They've been doing it this way and it's working great. But I come on board and I see, oh, hey, have you tried this? Or is this working? Or could you try this another way? I'm just seeing this because I worked at a different food pantry once and this is what they did and it really worked for them. Just things like that. Not that I'm coming in to, boss everybody around or tell them, oh, you're doing the food pantry wrong, because you're not. But you just see something with new eyes. And I think that's probably the same for lots of folks. When you're the new person at work, everybody else has been there 5 years, 6 years, 12 years, and now you're the newbie and you're like, wow. And if you come from other work experience, and this is typical for all of us, whether you're 25 or 75, you bring that experience with you, and you bring personalities that you've worked with. You bring conflicts that drove you nuts, but you were able to resolve them. So you bring new eyes and new energy to maybe an old issue that just needs some help.
Yeah. Yeah. I felt like my first year when I was here as pastor, that one of the best things that I brought was just new eyes, you know, and I realize now after being here 6 years that I've been able to overlook things that would have driven me nuts in the beginning. So
Right.
I think new eyes are always really, really important. And then, how do we, as the recipient of those new eyes, how do we keep ourselves open so we can,
Right.
yeah, take advantage of that. Um, uh, so the the way that nines apparently deal, like their primary defense mechanism is called numbing. What do you think of that?
I'm going to agree.
Hmm.
It's not, there's no pride in doing that, but it's just kind of what happens.
Yeah.
And I think you can work around that, and you can get, past that level, because there's some situations that just, you need to make a decision, and to make it helpful to everyone, and just move on through and get
Hmm.
it done. Because doing nothing changes nothing.
Hmm. Yeah. 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 I mean, like an obvious way of numbing for some people is drugs or drinking, but I think it can be like, um, you know, uh, like watching shows or eating or anything that just kind of takes the urgency and the intensity of having to make a decision, having to face some sort of conflict, out of it.
I'm going to say too, just with age comes experience, and I love the word wisdom.
Hmm.
I have a coworker that says, "Oh, you're so smart." I'm going, I learned this years ago, or I read it, or somebody taught this to me. It's like, I didn't just make this up, because very few of us think we're really all that smart. And of course, very few of us think we're stupid either. So, but you pick up experiences that stick with you. And I'm going to hope that you keep a little of the bad stuff as well as the good stuff, but more good stuff that sticks with you, that you in turn can pass on to the next person, or to be a mentor to someone who's, having to learn your job, or how to do their job, whatever the situation is. But
Hmm.
to bring that experience with you in a kind and gentle way, and not just because, well, this is how we've done it, and this is what I learned, and do it because I said so. That's not the answer.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we have to avoid that, and go with, I have found in the past that this worked, and I think we can try it here.
Hmm.
Try it, and again, be flexible. If it doesn't work, all right, we tried it, it didn't work, let's try something else. Let's go to I hate to say this, plan B. And then if plan B doesn't work, you might have to push on to plan C, or just scrap everything and start over.
Yeah. Well, it when you talk, there's like this openness that you kind of have. You're not entrenched on, we've always done it this way, what have you. Have you always been kind of an open personality, ready to try new things, or being practical like that, or has that changed over time?
Up to a point. I think 30 or 40 years ago, I was at a different level. Way back when I was a young wife and mother, and then I was a divorced mother of three, and you progress along the way, and sometimes you just have to be the boss. So like, if
Mhm.
you're the mom and there's no dad living there, you got to be the mom and the dad, which is stupid, but you have to do it. But you have to be the boss and set the boundaries and the rules, and stick to it. Then as they grow up and they move out, they have their own lives, then you move into a different level. Okay, now take care of yourself, and do your job, and do your fun, and find your life. And then as you get to be a grandma, which is fabulous, there's a whole new level there, because let's face it, you get to do stuff with grandma that you don't get to do with mom and dad. I know that's a shocker out there, folks, but that's the truth. And that's the fun part, as you get older and you can embrace that level of, you get to be with grandma and you get to go to grandma camp and you get to bake cookies and eat pizza and stay up till 9 o'clock or whatever, things that mom and dad don't let you do, but you're at grandma's house. So rules are a little different. You're not breaking mom and dad's rules.
Yeah.
Just kind of bending them a little.
How many grandchildren do you have?
I have 6.
6.
And they're all grown up. I've got 3 that are in their 20s and
no.
2 or 1 in college. They're all in college. Some are in college. I forget. I only have 6.
Yeah.
But the 2 youngest both turned 16 this year. So 1 boy and 1 girl, different families. And, so now we're going to begin to the getting driver's licenses and dating and
oh goodness
stuff, grown up stuff. One's in college. She's the one in Florida. She has a part-time job at Disney. She is Miss Hospitality. She's also a ballerina, so she's a performer.
Oh, wow.
And she's adorable. She just is. I know every grandparent thinks their kids are adorable. Well, they are. So hey. And then the other 3 2 are still in college and 1's out of college. He's an actuary with an insurance company.
Okay.
Which sounds totally boring, but he loves it. So there you go.
Yeah. When you were a mother of 3, having to be both mom and dad, in a sense, as you said, what was a boundary or rule that you chose to enforce that was difficult?
Ooh, I know one that was really top of the list. When my daughter was about 14 or 15, she had a best friend who at that time, let's see, this would have been in the 80s, late 80s, wore black, had the black hair, the black lipstick, the black nail polish. I'm sure it was called goth because that was the thing. So Melody tried to embrace that persona herself. And I'm like, no. She decided she wasn't going to eat meat. And I'm like, okay, so you'll eat lots of chicken. No, it wasn't meat, it's just beef. Okay, just beef. And yet the girl loves sausage and bacon and all the other meat products. So she went with that. But she told me she was going to a concert on a school night. And, parents are going, oh, no, you're not. But she told me that she was going to a concert with, I'll say Beth, I don't know her name, the girl. And her mom had already bought the tickets. I said, no, you're not. I said, it's a school night. The concert's downtown. It's here in Indianapolis, downtown. I said, no, you're not. I said, you didn't ask me, and you don't just tell me that you're going to go to a concert on a school night. And I don't even know what the group was. Didn't matter because you're not going. And she threw a fit and called me a bunch of names, and I didn't care because, I'm still the mom and you're 14. And I said, I'm going. And she says, well, what am I going to tell Beth? What am I going to tell her mom? I said, you're going to tell them that your mom said you can't go. Well, she already bought the tickets. I don't care. She can find another friend to go to the concert. You're not going. And she didn't go. Obviously, she didn't go. She didn't like me for a long time, and that's okay. But you want to hear something funny? I love this. This is the other side of the story. She goes off to college. Now, granted, she was up at Muncie, which is 45 minutes away, but still went to Ball State. After like the first 3 or 4 weeks, she's like a totally different girl. She's meeting girls from all other backgrounds, all other places. And all of a sudden, I'm not the Wicked Witch of the West. I'm like this great mom who buys her Pop-Tarts and microwave popcorn and, goes up and takes her out to dinner once a week. And so, it comes around. So when your 14-year-old is like this monster, just remember at some point you're going to have an 18-year-old, which is going to be fabulous. So it's out there. It's out there.
Yeah. Well, that's I think an important story because, for the 9s, the fruit of the Spirit is taking action. And the root sin is the failure to take action. It's sometimes called sloth or laziness. And, you think of, when I think of laziness, I think of like, not cleaning up the room and laying on the couch all day, but it's deeper than that. It's these these key moments where you need to take a stand to be honest and truthful. And you kind of knew what was right in that moment. You needed to teach her a lesson and assert your authority. That was your responsibility. And she ended up loving you for it. I try to remember that because I got two 12-year-old stepsons and a 9-year-old and a 3-year-old. And there's a lot of conflict over whose way we're going on things.
And yeah, this is still very new for you too. So
yeah,
it'll flow eventually.
Yeah.
I do remember one other thing that I said to Melody at the concert thingy. I said, this is not the only concert that you're not going to get to go to. I said, there are going to be other concerts out there and other events that you're going to want to do that I'll say yes to. So this is not the end of the world of your concert going.
Mm-hmm.
This is no for now. And I kind of stuck with it. This is no for now, not forever. This is no for this time.
Yeah.
And that eases the pain a little. I mean, she still hated me for a while, but I didn't care at that point. You just move on because she will love you again. But yeah, it's no for now.
Mm-hmm.
I think, you know what? This sounds really corny, but I know God does that to us. He says, this is no for now.
Huh.
When you're praying for something, and it may just not be the right thing for you now, but somewhere down the road, he'll say yes about it, but no for now.
So when you get a no for now from God, that doesn't translate that God must not love you or that God's against you.
No, it's like, well, phooey. I really wanted whatever to happen, but I'll just move on and look at it later.
Yeah.
Come back to it later.
Yeah. One of the resources that I read in preparation on nines, it says that the lies nines believe is this, kind of in quotes, it's not okay to be bold and assert yourself. That's the lie that, according to this resource, that a 9, it's not okay to be bold and assert yourself. And then it says the truth that 9s need to hear is your presence and your opinion matters. So I was curious if that resonates with you.
Well, I'm kind of bold anyway, so that part kind of doesn't bother me. But yes, I want my opinion to be valued. And question too. I mean, somebody, well, why do you feel that way? Mm-hmm. Not just, okay, you feel this way, but why do you feel that way? You got to have that conviction to back it up, whether it's, just pick anything really. I didn't want to touch on this, but just to say, getting vaccinated for COVID. Okay. Mm-hmm. I feel it's the right thing to do. I've listened to the news. I've listened to the doctors. I've listened to the science. In my gut, this is the right thing to do. But when I'm confronted with someone that hasn't gotten the vaccine and they're like, I don't know, and I don't know enough about it. I'm like, the information's out there. Ask your doctor. We got doctors here in this building where I work. We have doctors here. Ask Dr. John. He's probably one of the smartest men I know. Ask him. This is how I feel, but it's up to you. And I don't want somebody to come back in my face about blah, 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 about whatever the anti-vaxxers want to say to me, because I don't listen to them, so it's okay. But that's the most topical thing right now in our lives. Yeah. And it's really hard for some of us to keep that balance and keep that calmness and serenity and make peace with the people that are going blah, 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 blah. And you're like, well, follow the science, follow the, the facts.
Yeah, when we talked about that before this interview, I was encouraged by how you spoke of somebody in particular and kind of the gentleness and respectfulness in which you talked about where she was and how you felt about her, and even when she chose to do it, how you were encouraging and I think that's a 9 at their best. And I shared a little bit with you that this Sunday I'm going to preach on James, the brother of Jesus. And he has to come to a very critical, controversial decision that defines the church for the rest of time. So that's in Acts chapter 15. And one of the things that's striking about it is that when he makes his final decision, which is that's him bearing the fruit of the Spirit, like he's taking responsibility to understand where he stands on something and then communicate it, because his opinion matters. But then he goes to significant lengths to try to meet the losing side, so to speak, or the opposing side where they are. And when I talk with folk about the vaccination, I've been vaccinated. I think that it's the wise and essential thing to do, and that there is very good information about how it came about and it being safe. I think what I can learn from you and the nines among us and the nine within me is just to really see why people are choosing not to, right? To respect that opinion. That's very much been lost in our public discourse, as I know you're well aware. And we need more people, I think, that can see all points of view while also taking a clear position that they, after prayer and some humility and some study, that they've come to and willing to share it. So, well, thank you for going there. I didn't know if you would. I mean, it's a tough topic, but I don't think us not talking about it as a church community, a place where hopefully, no matter where you are on life's journey, you're welcome here. And so whether you've been vaccinated or you're choosing not to, or you're afraid, or somewhere in between, man, could we come together and talk peacefully about it?
I agree. And I'm glad that every Sunday we were closed for quite a while because of the restrictions, but you made it clear every time on your podcasts on Sunday mornings that we're following the guidelines and we want people to be safe and to be healthy. And we have had some folks that have gotten sick with COVID, and so we want everybody to be safe and healthy.
Yeah.
And you can't deny that. And I think going back to wearing masks right now, fine, who cares?
Yep.
We'll be healthy and we'll be safe, and
Yeah.
we'll keep our kids safe. That's the important thing too.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Polly, for being willing to interview, and we will see you on Sunday.
All right. Bye, everybody.